that historically needs very little introduction in the Premier League. It's one of the enduring rivalries, isn't it, Sam? Arsenal against Manchester United. The Sunday Express's back page has got the headline, "Go Raise the Roof," from Mikel Arteta. I was at his news conference, as were you, on Friday, and the question was asked, almost, the fans at the Emirates getting a little bit twitchy, getting a little bit nervy. What was his message to them? He didn't address the fact that they were getting nervy or twitchy, simply go and be the 12th man.
Yeah, and that's a constant theme of Arteta's time at Arsenal. He's always been very demanding of the home fans, and I think in a lot of occasions in previous years it's been quite effective, and Arsenal have done a lot to sort of build the atmosphere pre-match. And ahead of the PSG game last year, the semi-final Champions League, they had a address from Arteta looking down the camera, sort of "we need you," kind of recruiting the whole fans to the team. And it's a big thing for Arteta, and he's been very personally involved in building that atmosphere. But there is a fundamental issue right now at the Emirates Stadium, which is that there is so much anxiety and angst among the fan base because they've been scarred by the previous 3 years of finishing second and being so close and just falling short every time. And B, because they know that they've got every ingredient possible that they could ever need to win the league. Everything's set up for them to do it this year, and they know how good the team is. But there's so much worry that they won't fulfil that potential that I think it creeps into the stands, and to an extent in certain games has creeped onto the pitch as well. And you hear it sometimes after half an hour of games, 20 minutes, if it's not going as Arsenal really want, you start hearing those groans and those frustrations. And I mean, maybe that's just the fans around the press box, that's where I sit, maybe that's just a slightly misguided view, but I think a lot of people share that perception that it's so on edge right now and it's so emotional for Arsenal, and that's totally understandable, but I don't think it helps the team in any way.
With that in mind, Carl, how big a test is this of their credentials and their mentality? Because they've got a little bit of heat on them following City's win now, haven't they?
Yeah, a little bit of attention. They are the hunters. They're not the hunters. It's a different dynamic. Liverpool fans can probably share notes with Arsenal fans about what it's like when you're far ahead of Manchester City in the title race, and you have to make sure you stay calm. Sam's totally right. There's a tension. It does feel like there's almost anxiety among some sections of the Arsenal fan base that, to Arteta's credit, doesn't go onto the field too often. I think Arsenal are the best team in England. They should be winning the Premier League. This shouldn't be a concern. If everything keeps going, it's fine. And yet there are little things that sometimes as a Manchester United reporter, you're paying attention to. The fact that Manchester United are playing in a black kit today at the Emirates shouldn't mean anything. And yet, ... history of the Premier League, certain performances, is that going to plant a seed of doubt in not the Arsenal players' minds, but might it plant a seed of doubt in a home crowd that might have a bit of tension in those early 10 minutes? So if United start hot, could something happen?
I think the danger is that it's a free hit for United today because, there's a bit of a euphoria right now because of the situation. The derby win last week, Michael Carrick's in, DNA, etc. And I think that they go to the Emirates with a chance of getting a result. They've won at Anfield, they've beaten City, they've beaten Chelsea. I think the Arsenal fans will look at United thinking, United played well last week, a lot of pace on the break, classic Man United goals against Arsenal over the years, hit them on the counter-attack. So if you're an Arsenal fan, the nerves today will be exacerbated by the fact that you've got United visiting the Emirates, who haven't won there in the league for a long time. A lot of things are kind of conspiring to suggest that this might be United's day, but then the reality might hit and Arsenal might win 4-0. They might just get, 3 or 4 set pieces and dominate. But I can see why Arsenal fans will be edgy today because it is one of those games whereby United have got a lot in their favour that they shouldn't really have in their favour.
I think one thing in Arsenal's favour compared to Manchester City is the strength of their back four. I think also because Mikel Arteta has had these consecutive second-place finishes, the Arsenal squad is uniquely built to not concede counter-attacks in the same way that, say, Manchester City right now or Liverpool right now can concede counter-attacks. So you take a player like Declan Rice, who, to my mind, is incredible at stopping counter-attacks. There was that very, very obvious moment, him versus 4 Liverpool players, and he sort of delayed until Trent Alexander-Arnold made a mistake. And you've got a player like Zubimendi, who I think is a phenomenal number 6 as well. Someone like Yuri and Timber, who can flip between roles, and Calafiori being back. If Arsenal play sensible football to the sum of their parts, they should go through this game swimmingly. And yet, confidence among Manchester United that, Arsenal fans will say is completely unearned. And yet you never know.
Sam, an easy quiz question for you. Well, I'm going to do it the other way around. If Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Michael Carrick, Ralf Rangnick, Erik ten Hag, Ruben Amorim, Darren Fletcher and Michael Carrick is the answer, what is the question?
How many managers have taken on Arteta at Arsenal?
So they're the United managers since Mikel Arteta has been in charge at Arsenal. The reason I'm asking you that question is because I want to direct you towards the Mail on Sunday piece that Riyad Al Samurai has written. Arsenal offer United blueprint on how to walk their way out of the wasteland. He says, beyond a pair of underwhelming strikers purchased at vast cost in the summer, there is little or no common ground between the respective versions of United and Arsenal in 2026. When they face off at the Emirates Stadium today, those disparities could be conclusively emphasised. But in such a fixture exists a blueprint for how United must walk their way out of the wasteland. In short, copy Arsenal. Does it show what Arsenal have done, the value of patience, plan and a structure?
Absolutely. But it also shows the merits of empowering a really good manager, someone who's come into the club and transformed effectively every element of it. If you remember, Arteta was appointed as head coach in a sporting director model. After about a year, the club, unprompted, unasked for by Arteta, said, you're now the manager, you've been promoted. We want to give you more power. And they built it around him. Like, he is the single focus for this whole project. And that, I think, differs from what a lot of other big clubs are doing. And it goes back to our chat earlier about sporting director models and those things. And at United, they clearly don't want to empower the manager or the head coach. They want to empower the executives above them. I think that is a fundamental difference, and that is a sort of shift that would require a massive, massive change of heart at Old Trafford.
This is such a difficult question because so many... Yes, I can totally understand why you are watching Arsenal go from 8th place, 5th place, title challenges and say, copy them. However, so many things went right at the most difficult moments for Arsenal to allow them to continue with Mikel Arteta. I don't think you can copy Arsenal unless you have another period where there's a global pandemic and there's closed-doors football. Because if you talk to quite a few Arsenal fans, quite a lot of them would have been booing him in the Emirates in December 2020. You talk to Arsenal fans about Emil Smith-Rowe coming on against Chelsea to help swing a huge momentum swing. There are so many things that are not repeatable to this Arsenal blueprint. And I very much believe Manchester United did want to try and copy Arsenal and did want to try and make say someone like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, their version of Mikel Arteta. But 2 or 3 things went wrong. Namely, let's say, the Cristiano Ronaldo re-signing. That really had a huge change on their dynamic. I very much believe there was a point where Manchester United looked at Erik ten Hag after he wins the League Cup and goes, let's empower him and give him loads of money to build things his way. Except when you empowered Erik ten Hag, you got a lot of players that were, OK, well suited to Eredivisie football, but had no idea of the change in physicality and the time on the ball that you needed in English football. It's all well and good in saying empower the manager or back the manager, but sometimes backing the manager is telling him no or covering his weaknesses. Arsenal have done that really well with Mikel Arteta. Arteta is allowed to buy his many hybrid centre-backs, but every now and again they do have to buy an attacking player to balance things out. You can't just... It's not a one-to-one blueprint.
Just pick the right manager in the first place.
That's the thing.
There we
go. It's
go.
not a case of empower the manager you have. It's
pick the right
get
guy.
the right manager. Yeah, and then when you have him, trust him. And the issue is everyone wants Mikel Arteta, but there aren't many Mikel Artetas around.
But the Manchester United will have appointed their managers thinking they are appointing the right manager.
That's the mistake they've made.
Give them the chance.
That's the mistake they've repeatedly made.
Which is why, again, this idea of you have to have patience because you had patience with Mikel Arteta. It was easy to have patience with Mikel Arteta because also he had an FA Cup already. He had credit in the bank in the way that quite a few of these managers who have gone, and it's not just Manchester United, I think it's Chelsea too, when they have tried to do a sort of longer-term vision, in that sometimes you have persisted with the wrong person, and the argument is, well, Arsenal stuck with Arteta. Like, yes, because Arteta is better than that manager.
Yeah.
Sometimes stop, realise you're on the wrong bus or on the wrong train, and the longer that you're on it, the further you're going to be from your destination.
But the credit has to go to the people above Arteta as well, because even though we're saying, yes, he had credit in the bank, that he came in halfway through that first season, they finished 8th. His first full season, they finished 8th. The following season, it was 5th, but perhaps more damaging was the fact they finished below Tottenham Hotspur. So when people look back on that, the patience that they showed Arteta might not have been afforded to him in the current climate.
Yes, this is why you can't call the Arsenal method a blueprint.
I think as well, with due respect to Arsenal, which sounds like disrespect, but when Arteta came in, it was the tail end of the Arsene Wenger era when Emirates had come in. Arsenal hadn't been challenging for anything for about 10, 15 years. The demands on the Arsenal coach at that time were not the same as on a Man United coach or a Liverpool coach. Arsenal are a big club, but they're not at that level of being a super club that those two are. So they weren't expected to challenge for titles. I think they've been out of the Champions League for 2 or 3 years by the time Arteta came in. So Arsenal were at a different level then, and Mikel Arteta has restored Arsenal to where they should be. he's just one step away from doing that completely by winning the title. But I think you have to remember that the pressure on Arteta at the time was different to what it is every time Man United appoint a coach. I mean, we talk about Ten Hag and Solskjaer. The problem with United at times was they appointed managers not because they're the right man for the job, but because they were the cheapest option. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Ten Hag being two obvious examples. They picked the coach for the wrong reasons. Arsenal did it for the right reasons with Arteta and stuck with it, but still, ultimately, if you don't pick the right guy, you can't have stability, because stability with the wrong guy is just going to take you in the wrong direction.
Sam, Andy Dunn's piece in the Sunday Mirror, he says this is the start of a golden Arteta era. Arsenal can't afford to look a title gift horse in the mouth. He says it's right to say Arteta will have no excuses for failing now to win the Premier League title that has eluded Arsenal for over 2 decades. But even though it is so far into his time, it still feels like this season could be just the beginning of a golden Arteta era rather than its crowning point. Is it looking, particularly if they complete and end the 22-year wait and win the title, is it looking a little bit ominous for the rest, given the squad that they've built up, and finally just to get over the line this time and what it could mean moving forward in the next few seasons?
Yeah, I think in theory, on paper, this squad is not really at its peak yet. It is in terms of the depth they've got and the fact that they've got so many players per position, and I don't think that's actually sustainable. I think next year they can't be as well populated in the squad as they are this year. They have to make some sales just for financial reasons. But like the players, the core key players have still got 2 or 3 years to go before they hit their primes, theoretically. Like Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, William Saliba, those guys are all still on the up, and the trajectory should theoretically be upwards. So I absolutely understand the argument for Arsenal in that sense. My question, and it's been the question in my mind for 3 or 4 years now, is just how long Arteta can keep going himself with the amount of intensity and emotional energy he invests in this club. And I think that's a question that only he can answer, and no one around him at Arsenal would ever know or see. But I think for me, it's sort of, as long as he wants to be there, I think they're going to be on that trajectory and building that squad together. But the question for me is just how long he wants to do it and how long he can put himself through what he goes through every week.
Listen, I love Dunny, but I disagree with that piece, because I think that it feels like this season it's now or never for Arsenal. In terms of, if you don't win the league this year, they're not going to win it. Because I think that because I think that there's too many parts of the plan that would fall away. Would Arteta survive much longer if they don't win the title this year, especially from this position? Yeah. I'm not sure. I think if Arsenal don't win the title this year from this position, a lot of questions will be asked that he can't answer. I just think that from next point on, you mentioned before, Carl, City will bounce back, Liverpool will bounce back. They spent too much money not to. I think United might show the signs of bouncing back. So Arsenal have to win it this year, and even if they do win it this year, I think the competition next year is going to be much more intense. That I don't see this being a team of the Pep Guardiola, Man City, or Chelsea and Mourinho, or United and Fergie that's got a core that's going to dominate. I just don't see this team dominating. Even under Wenger, they never won back-to-back titles. I mean, there's something about this squad. It lacks something. Maybe it lacks a bit of fantasy, lacks a bit of a true game changer, the Thierry Henry style, or a real kind of superstar that can make the difference. Maybe they'll get that.
Do you not think they can buy one after they get this title? I'm
not sure it's Arteta's blueprint. I don't think Arteta has that. I don't think Arteta wants to surrender that kind of responsibility on the pitch to a superstar. I think he likes very much a team unit, almost the Mourinho style. But I don't think he's as good as Mourinho. I just think that there'll be competition next year.
I think Arteta's got more in common with David Moyes than many give him credit for.
Yeah.
And I mean that very much as a compliment.
Yeah.
Sometimes Arsenal play like a very classic British football team, and yes, this Arsenal team sometimes looks like they're playing with a handbrake on and aren't really necessarily going after teams in the way that you want. That's probably a strength in certain games. I think this Arsenal team are going to win this Premier League. I think between now and 2028, they're probably going to play in a Champions League final. Are they going to win that Champions League final? Well, I don't know. But yeah, Arsenal are good in a way that should frighten everyone, every major rival of Arsenal for the next couple of years.
They should be much further ahead than they are than 4 points. For me, this Premier League title race is the best chance Arsenal will ever have. Like you said,
it's a presentable opportunity.
One of the biggest things in their favour is the fact that there's no real credible challenger. Man City are second despite having one of their worst seasons under Pep Guardiola, but City could still win it. And I think that Arsenal, if they're as good as people say they are, then they are good, but then they should be 10 points clear by now, not 4.
When you say they are good in this, is it just the case that they're not as entertaining as you want them to be?
They're not as ruthless as they should be. The last 2 games have been nil draws.
I think they're very ruthless.
Liverpool 0-0 at home.
I think the difference between Arsenal, I think one of the things with Arsenal in particular is when they're up against these low blocks, they get that set-piece goal, and then when an opposition team goes after them, then they go to goal 2, goal 3, goal 4.
They couldn't beat Nottingham Forest. It was 0-0 at Forest. I mean, seriously, 2 back-to-back 0-0 draws in the Premier League, so they're not ruthless enough. a classic Premier League champion is winning those games.
But the Premier League isn't what it was 3 years ago when you needed 95 points to win the league.
No, but
the ceilings come down and the floors come up. Everyone's better.
So if the ceilings come down, are they not a convincing champion? Is that what you're saying?
I think they are.
I don't think they care if they're convincing or not. They just want to win the league.
Exactly. But they haven't done it yet, and this is the thing, they haven't done it yet.
No, but they're 4 points clear, and they're doing all the things that you would think a team needs to do to
apart from winning at Nottingham Forest and apart from beating Liverpool at home. 2-0 draws for a team that's chasing the title in January is not a good sign.
Wow.
Just on Carl's point about the David Moyes factor, I think this is one of the most interesting thing about Arteta, that obviously because he's Spanish and he worked with Pep Guardiola, people kind of had that vision of him as this Barcelona academy graduate. But he spent more time in England than he has in Spain in his whole life. Like, he is fully aligned with English football culture, as well as having that Spanish upbringing and tradition and the Guardiola experience. And I think Arsenal at their best, which I think this season, they're 4 points clear, they're looking at a pretty strong team, have that blend of possession dominance, pass the ball around, 4-3-3. But also, if they need to, he can lean into the David Moyes things he learned playing at Everton all those years.
Just picking up on something you said as well, though, about them being ruthless, about them being convincing. We've also got to remember the injury issues that they had throughout the whole of this season to key players. And now, the reason I'm asking, is it looking ominous for everyone else? Because aside of Max Dowman, now, they have got a fully fit squad for the first time for the entire season. That's got to scare the opposition now, given the position that they're in, having had all of those injuries.
Well, they're fully fit right now, but, I mean... everyone gets injuries. And yes, they're back fit right now, but, there's a long way to go.
Let me rephrase that then. How would the other clubs have coped who are challenging for the title had they had the same injuries that Arsenal have had? Would they be top?
No, so that's credit to Arsenal, the fact that they're there. But, Man City have had a lot of injuries and they're 4 points behind. So I just think we're all a bit too quick to just give Arsenal the title. I've said all season I think they'll win it, but I still think there's a long way to go, a lot of football to be played and a lot of issues, that...
So it's 4 points now. You think Arsenal are going to win it? 4 points going to get more or less come May time?
It should get more because the challenges aren't particularly...
It should.
convincing.
Do you think it's going to be more or less than 4 points at the end of the season?
I think it could be tighter. Because I think the last 8 games of the season, I think that's going to be, as to Sam's point about the Emirates being edgy, that's the real test for me. When they get to that point of the season when the pressure is on and when, they're losing 1-0 at home to Brighton or something and it gets really edgy, that's when you win a title. And Arsenal, as we know, haven't been through that grinder yet. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the issue we've seen, that can be difficult for them. I think they've got more of the tool set to do it this year, but still, until they do it, they haven't done it.
You've watched far more Premier League football than I have.
I'm not an Arsenal fan, so I'm not emotionally invested in this at all. It's just my job to cover them primarily. But I do understand some of the frustrations of some Arsenal fans when the team for years was criticised for being too soft. They get rolled over by bigger boys. Now they don't get rolled over, and the team they're too boring now. And so people accuse them of one thing or other. Last year they were accused of not big enough to get over the line and not being able to lead the league title. And now people are saying, it should be more than 4 points clear. It's like they can't really win.
It should be in this league title this season because it's not Man City Liverpool going at it, head to head. It's basically a gift wrap for them this year because nobody equipped to challenge them. But Man City is still there, despite the fact they've had injuries, they've had loss of form. Man City is still there at 4 points. It could be 7 points at the end of today if they beat United, fair enough. But still, they should be much further ahead of a weak
Is 7 points enough?
7 points would be...
For your own barometer?
Yeah, I think so.
So they've got to beat Man United today, and this is all...
If they beat Man United, they're going to win the league.
OK.
How is it... City have spent 500 million in the last year, and they have the best manager in history. And you're saying the title's gift wrap to Arsenal?
Because I don't think any of the teams that are challenging for the title beyond Arsenal are being convincing. It's not a title race where you can say there's a definite challenger there. There's a definite challenger that can push them all the way.
You don't think City are a definite challenger? For all they've done in the last
decade? They are, but they shouldn't be considering the injuries they've had and the way they've played this season. Losing 3-0 home to Tottenham. City aren't a convincing City for me, but they're still there. So that's what I'm saying about the fact that
they should be there, though.
We've been spoiled.
But
we've been spoiled in recent years. Liverpool, Man City have been so close. The classic Arsenal, Man United title races when it was neck and neck for a long time. I don't see a challenger of the calibre.
So the disagreement is the fact that there's a lack of a proper challenger.
Yeah, so they should be further ahead.
But that's not Arsenal's fault if everyone else's can't.
No, but it's Arsenal's fault if they're not further ahead. They should be more than 4 points ahead of, I think, of a weak chasing pack.
I've got to ask you, Carl, before we move on to the break, there is another team playing.
There are, yes, very
much talked about Manchester United, in fact. The Sunday Mirror says United on all levels. Michael Carrick has revealed that he's spoken to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. spoken to him about United, also maybe giving the hierarchy a bit of advice on certain midfield targets for the summer. He's clearly just there until the end of the season. But from what you guys are hearing, and Mark, come in on this as well, is there a world where he can get the full-time gig, Michael Carrick?
There is a world. You can't discount anything. United very often do these sorts of statements of we're going to have an interim manager, then go out and get a permanent manager. Ralph Rangnick was supposed to have a say in transfers, but then his interim spell went so poorly that got scrapped as well. Or indeed, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was meant to be the interim, and then we're going to get a permanent manager and a director of football, and then everything basically became Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after that. So if Michael Carrick goes on the sort of runs that many are hoping for, then I'm sure he can work his way onto that shortlist. From everything I'm hearing and everything I'm sort of seeing and the noise in around the club is United seem to be a little bit like Tottenham Hotspur, a little bit like Liverpool, waiting for this World Cup managerial merry-go-round. I mean, Thomas Tuchel's contract will be up, Carlo Ancelotti's situation will be up in the air, Pochettino will likely be available. I think Julian Nagelsmann will also be possibly available for conversation too. So Carrick not on the shortlist at this point in time. If they beat Arsenal and somehow manage to defeat this title race thing you're talking about?
I think he's a PS on the shortlist right now. And I think we might have a conversation to have with Michael Carrick, because if last week proves to be a blip and just a bit of a one-off and they go back to the Ruben Amorim style of, in and out of form, then he's not even in the conversation. But United can't be influenced by what happened with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because Solskjaer in the end was tactically not up to the job, but he got runners up in the league, he got up to Europa League finals. It wasn't that bad, but still, the vibe around United is that we can't go back to an interim because it didn't work with Ole. Michael Carrick's a different character completely. So if Michael Carrick does well enough to get him into the Champions League, then you have to consider him. Because it's almost like, if he gets the machine working and it's working well, then why get rid of him to bring in somebody who might get it, misfunctioning again? I mean, if Thomas Tuchel comes in, for instance, will he work with Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada in a harmonious way that Michael Carrick will? Probably not. So if Michael Carrick gets him into the Champions League, I think he'll get the job. Do
you think Michael Carrick gets Manchester United back in the Champions League?
I think it's a weak Premier League this season, so I think he's got a chance. I think top five will get in the Champions League, so I think he will.
Fantastic stuff. So it's Arsenal against Manchester United, the game that evokes all sorts of memories, and I'm sure some of those memories will come flooding back when you see who's in the Super Sunday.
Bruno Fernandes, he was so good, wasn't he, against Manchester City last weekend, and he is now the most transferred in player this week. But it's not an easy fixture, is it? Arsenal away. Myself, I was thinking I'm going to wait another game week. What do you think managers should do?
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. Probably the toughest fixture in the Premier League is Arsenal away. And we always talk about Bruno Fernandes being fixture-proof. So we'll see who really believes in that and if they'll go for him this game week. But you're not just buying Bruno for this game week. You're buying him probably until the end of the season. So hopping on now is never a bad idea. I just wonder, is it one game week too early?
Yeah, the problem is if you don't get on him too early, the price just rises and rises, as we're seeing at the moment. And also we have to bear in mind just how good he was against Manchester City, Harry.
Yeah, I think if you have the ability to wait and buy him next week, I think that's probably the best thing. Away at Arsenal is not an easy fixture. But if you're buying a midfielder this week and you've got money for Bruno Fernandes, I wouldn't buy someone else over him just because of the fixture this week. I'd go, if you need a midfielder, if you're selling Bruno Guimaraes, you're selling someone else and you're buying a midfield and you've got the money, I would just go straight to Bruno. I am wondering about doing it exactly this week, again, because of those potential price changes, not risking leaving it late into next week where he'll be even more expensive than he is now with the nice run of games, Fulham at home starting next week. So, yeah, if you can wait until 24, then I think that's fine. But if you need a midfielder this week, I don't think I'd buy anyone else instead of him.
Yeah, Stephen, we've got the fixtures on the screen at the moment. As Harry said, that from Fulham in game week 24, it's Fulham, Spurs, West Ham, Everton, Crystal Palace. If you don't own him this weekend, I imagine that price is going to keep rising and you're going to want him for that run.
Yeah, I think he's one of those players that, because there's not a huge, crop of premium players really performing, Bruno Fernandes, you're going to be able to find the budget to get him in, especially if you're selling the likes of Foden, not this game week, but the next one. I think Foden to Bruno just is a move that writes itself, really.
Stephen, I sometimes think that FPL confirms just how many Manchester United fans there are out there in the world. And the fact that Mbeumo is the second most transferred in player this week as well is another suggestion of that, isn't it?
No, not at all. Man United fans would never just
You're one
hop
of
on the
them.
bandwagon of buying a player. Yeah, I know. I say that with my hands held up, rightly so. No, but in all honesty, we do see this happen a lot with Man United players. When they start to rise in price, you just have to get in early or hold on for the ride because they will increase in price immediately.
Yeah, let's talk about Dorgu then, because he was a painful own on your bench?
My bench.
My bench last weekend as well. He's the third most transferred in player this week. He is a lovely price point, isn't he? Is he someone that's worth having for the long term because of that price point and his potential?
Yeah, all of those deadlines that I was waking up for at 6 o'clock in the morning to check the scores, seeing a Dorgu 15-pointer on my bench against Manchester City wasn't something I was particularly expecting. I think both with Dorgu and with Mbeumo, I think outside of Bruno, it is quite difficult to predict those Man United lineups going forward, right? He's playing Dorgu in that advanced role, particularly because it feels like they've got Manchester City and probably Arsenal who'll do something similar. But when those fixtures get maybe slightly easier, they expect to have a bit more of the ball. Do they opt for someone like a Matheus Cunha on the wing? Do they play Mbeumo and Ahmad on the wings with someone like a Cunha or a Sesko up front? Because now that they're playing with an extra man in midfield in Kobbie Mainoo, who played very well against Manchester City, that's one less attacking body. So as much as Mbeumo might start every week, we saw an early sub for him, and we don't quite know where Dorgu is going to play. So I've got him, and I'm not starting him this week, and I want to wait a couple of weeks to see exactly what that United team looks like, I think.
Yeah, as a Manchester United fan, Stephen, how assured is he of starts, do you think?
I mean, you would think after his performance against City, and honestly, his performances of recent, you would think he's nailed on to start. But with a new manager, Cunha on the bench, I just don't see Cunha staying on the bench for long. But Dorgu's still only 4.3 million, which I guess mitigates that risk that you're taking with his minutes.
OK, let's talk about a player on the other team then, Bukayo Saka. He was rested against Fulham last time out. His goals haven't been there as much, but against Forest last time out. His goals haven't been there as much, but he has been providing assists. I don't know if that's enough to appease his owners. How are you feeling about him?
Yeah, so I've had a pretty up and down relationship with Saka over the past few weeks. I sold him when we got 5 free transfers and then bought him back again. And I've not been particularly impressed with it, particularly the minutes that we've seen recently from him, another benching. I do think with the games they've got coming up, I don't expect that to continue. There's a game in the Champions League next midweek where they've already qualified pretty much top of the Champions League. So we're expecting some rotation there. They've also got a cup game at home to Wigan in a few weeks where we might see the same. So despite the recent minutes for Saka, I think going forward, I'm hopeful that they'll be better. It's more the lack of returns and the lack of goals that Arsenal is scoring and his involvement in that. I think he's a fine hold. If there were other premiums like we spoke about with Salah, or if Palmer starts to return, if Foden was doing better, there'd be a bigger conversation to go and sell Saka. I don't think he's the best Arsenal midfielder at the moment. Declan Rice at a cheaper price is doing just as much and playing more minutes, but I don't really see what else I'm going to spend the money on at the moment.
Yeah, I know that you're a bit more heavily invested in on the Arsenal defence, Stephen. We'll see your team very shortly to understand that a bit more. But in terms of that move that Harry mentioned, does it make sense if you're a Saka owner to just go straight to Rice?
Yeah, I think it probably makes sense. I do like the move to Rice. His minutes are much more secure. And I just think that we're getting close to Declan Rice maybe being a bit too expensive at 7.4 mil, but I still don't mind him as a pick whatsoever. I think he's hit 4 double-digit hauls already this season, so that says it all.
What about in defence? We mentioned that you like the defence. You're considering him bringing Gabriel this week. Talk us through that decision. Is he the best defender in the game at the moment?
100% the best defender in the game. He's almost 7 mil now, and even then, I still think he'll be great value. He's the biggest set-piece threat for the best defence in the league, who also love to score from set pieces. And Harry's been hounding me for weeks about me not having Gabriel in my team, so I'm starting to see the light finally.
Peer pressure always wins, doesn't it, when it comes to fantasy? OK then, Stephen, thank you very much. We'll be back with you very shortly to see his